MTTB Music Podcast.
What's on for beer?
Let's do it.
Happy.
What was that?
Oh, it was the theme tune, wasn't it?
Oh, right, the thing. Yeah, I forget that.
It's a very bad
Yeah.
version of the theme tune. Shows you how long it is since you listen to the podcast.
Solid burn. I do listen to the podcast. I'm the only one that does. Anyway, it's good to see you again.
Yeah. Happy autumn, apparently.
Well, it really has turned today, hasn't it?
I mean, it's not, obviously, but
No.
if you believe in the 3 months for the spring, summer, autumn, winter thing,
No, I'm more of a traditionalist. I go with the solstice rule. So yeah, I'm still living in late summer.
Woohoo!
Yeah, exactly. Bit of late summer on this podcast, but we'll come to that.
Indeedy. So, we're back. Obviously.
Yeah.
6 albums again, obviously. Although I say obviously, the times we've done less than 6 albums, we've been feeling
6 albums again.
particularly lazy. We haven't done that. So, we're doing a bit of serious mainstream to start off with this time. So we've got Beyoncé Renaissance, Lizzo Special, Danger Mouse and Black Thought Cheat Codes, Rico Nasty Las Ruinas, Pale Waves Unwanted, and Loudon Wainwright the Third Lifetime Achievement. The interesting thing, funny enough, we mentioned in a separate conversation earlier on, but I don't believe we've reviewed any of these people before, and the only connection we've had
I mean, you know.
Yeah, is that we did review Mr. Beyonce.
Oh, yeah.
Pretty much back very close to when we started the podcast.
Wow.
Which is probably the last time he released an album, wasn't it? I don't know, but I think he probably has released an album since then. But obviously,
I can't remember that far back.
Wasn't that like 99 Problems kind of time?
I think it's probably. Good grief, wow.
So, anywho.
That,
and then amazingly, we obviously, in some ways, it's surprising it's only the 7th studio album from Beyonce, given how long she's been around. But
I've heard of her.
Yeah, I've heard of her. And obviously, her last album, Lemonade, was hugely popular.
Massive.
And in that year, we totally ignored it and didn't review it at all.
It's one of those albums that we didn't listen to it, and I don't think I ever got around to listening to it.
Didn't I?
And yet I know it.
Yeah.
It's like, this is how Star Wars non-fans must feel about Star Wars.
Yeah. So it's only fair that we actually eventually get around to.
Yeah, exactly.
Miss Knowles. So 7th studio album, and apparently this is the first instalment of a trilogy.
Right. Okay. Bring it on. Okay.
So, do we want to bring it on, Pete? That's the question.
I mean, first and foremost, unusually, you've actually done the running order in a completely different way to my notes. I think we've been quite in sync recently, but we'll talk about that in the management meeting afterwards.
Yeah.
Beyoncé Renaissance. I'm excited that this is the first part of a trilogy, because this is a very inventive and, I was going to say solid, but I'm not going to use the word solid because that means so much to the 3 people that are listening. It's a very complete album. And
can I just say before you get that I think, you know when they say that wherever is it Norwegians or Icelandic people have 41 words, so 40 words.
Okay. So,
yeah, we have. I think we probably have that many for solid.
I have 45 definitions for solid. This is probably at the top end of all those definitions in terms of positive speaking. It's overall, it's a great soundtrack to an evening out. This album would not be in an unusual place if you were in a club and you were to put this on, and then if the DJ was to put this on and then just walk away for an hour and go for a pint or a cigarette or whatever, and just leave this playing, I think most people in that club would think that the DJ was still there. Because it is a set, it is a soundtrack, it is, it has a start and a finish, and unusually in this world of streaming, you can't listen to this album without listening to this album. If you know what I mean.
Very
From start
interesting,
to finish, it's got completeness. It's inventive. It has a completeness, which is really interesting. I mean, from its edgy intro through to the track Cozy, but then I think it really finds its feet when, curiously enough, a DJ actually comes in and goes, right, hey everyone, we're going to put on the album. And we start the start of the album. The second start of the album is a track called Alien Superstar, which has a serious nod to Right Said Fred somewhere in the middle there.
Well, it's not a serious nod. They did genuine lifts for Right Said Fred.
It is Right Said Fred. And given the title, possibly a subtle nod to David Bowie. And there's also some filthy dark synths right across the album. And I'm going to pull out Pure Honey from towards the end of the album, where again another subtle, not subtle, sort of Prince 80s sort of soundscape, which is a throwback, which I thought was really good. And that sort of 80s sound sort of pervades through the final third. But I think for me, it's the sort of 90s house of Break My Soul. The soft groove of both of Plastic Off the Sofa, and then you've got Virgo's groove, which is great pop, and it's just it's very current, very now, but also has all these references that some are less subtle, like Right Said Fred, and I'm not even going to mention Donna Summer because that's really obvious at the end.
Well, it's your man.
Yeah, it's your man.
Producer man whose name it's
Giorgio Moroder.
Giorgio. Yes, it's Giorgio. Yes, Giorgio.
Yeah, exactly.
It genuinely is.
It is there.
Yes, it is.
And it really comes through.
Yeah.
Exactly. Oh, this is going well. No, but I mean, throughout, it's subtle in places, but more obvious in others. But yet, it's continuous, and you feel that once you've started listening to it, you can't stop. I've listened to this album about 3 times now. And you know, I've really got to enjoy it, and I'm not a Beyoncé fan. I am not the target audience, but this is brilliant. You know, I've come to that conclusion. This is actually a brilliant album. It's not one I'm going to refer back to. It's probably not one I'm going to listen to often. Yeah. But in the back of my mind, I'll always think that first Beyoncé album we actually got round to reviewing on the podcast was actually really good. I'll leave it there.
I don't think it's brilliant, but I'll agree with you that this was one of 2 albums on the podcast where I definitely had the thing of third listen being the kind of changing of my opinion on it. First listen, because there is quite a lot going on.
Yes, tons.
In the background.
Yeah.
It kind of felt a bit much for me the first couple of times I was listening to it. Apart from first time round, Cozy kind of hooked me in. Like I thought, actually, yeah, this is, I quite like this. And Pure Honey, funny enough, that you mentioned as well. The 2 things that kind of went, well, those. Everything else was just like, oh no, it's just not working for me. But then by third listen, it kind of like levelled out, and I thought, I was starting to appreciate what was going on in the background as well as what was going on in the foreground. And I can see what you were saying about this is one of a couple of albums on the podcast where you can imagine going to disco, just putting it on and kind of going, right, fucking off now, I'll be back after I've had a few beers and come round, just take it off and then we'll put something else on. Because you're right, I mean, there's, whilst the album does have a focus, and I think you're right in the sense that actually it possibly hangs together better than any other album on the podcast, actually, I'd probably say.
Yeah.
As an album.
Oh yeah, it's complete.
There's quite a lot of different types of style of stuff going on in there, nods to various different kind of old school type hip hop stuff and soul stuff and various other things. As you said, Far Right Said Fred are in there. The interesting thing, I mean, we've made Cozy, Break My Soul, which I think is Robin S. Show Me Love, I think. Virgo's Groove, which you want to mention as well, and Pure Honey are probably the things that stand out for me most on the album. But what's also interesting about this album, and actually is an interesting unintentional link for this entire podcast, was the song Heated originally contained the phrase spaz.
Yes. Yeah.
Which obviously, apparently, in African American parlance, it's synonymous with freaking out or just going crazy. Although obviously,
it's a different meaning
for people in the UK and also other people that. What was good was when it was pointed out that Beyoncé immediately kind of like went fair cop governor and kind of replaced the offending word with the word blast. And why it's interesting is because Lizzo's song Girls also contained exactly the same word until it was also pointed out to her, and obviously from Lizzo's point of view, which we'll get to anyway, she'd kind of tweeted saying, "It's been brought to my attention that there's a harmful word on my new song. Let's make it clear. I never want to promote derogatory language. As a fat black woman in America, I've had many hurtful words used against me, so I understand the power of words they can have, whether intentionally or, in my case, unintentionally." And I thought that was that was actually quite interesting. And then
I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, both the Danger Mouse and Black Thought albums and the Rico Nasty albums.
I'll just throw my notes away now.
Yeah, use the words spaz and spastic.
Yeah.
So in the Danger Mouse album, Belize, admittedly it's not them. It's MF Doom's rap uses the word spastic, but on Blow Me, Rico Nasty says spazzing as well. So, unbeknownst to everything, we've actually doing a podcast on 4 albums that all use the word or versions of the word spastic, which is just bizarre.
Did you know this before we?
No, not at all.
As it occurred to me as we were going through this?
Genuinely hadn't occurred. Genuinely, because it wasn't intentional. That I've picked a topical podcast.
It's amazing that we're on trend for once.
But no, it's just bizarre.
Musical debate and lyrical debate.
Yeah.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because with an album like coming back to Beyonce, it's so complete, it's so well produced, it's so solid in terms of how it comes together. It feels wrong really that you have to sort of dissect it, edit it, pick it out. And it was funny, I was having this debate with someone else earlier today. It's like we live in a world now where it's just so easy to sort of go back and tweak it. Whereas, I mean, if you had like the
joy of digital,
the joy of digital. Like, back in the day, it's just like, okay, we'll put this word on this record, and now it's offending everyone. As it's too late because 100 million vinyl pressings are now out there, and there's no pulling that back.
We ain't getting it back. Yeah,
exactly.
It's just, it is bizarre, isn't it?
And it is bizarre, but it has been an interesting debate as well. I mean, in terms of mental health and obviously how that particular word has sort of caught on. It's been well used, but in a completely different context. But of course, obviously, UK
context is everything, is there?
UK listeners and others, like we do have listeners elsewhere, will obviously know it differently.
Kate, if you're still listening in Canada, hello.
Hi, Canada.
We move on to the amazingly 4th album from Lizzo, Gone Special. Where do I say? I can't start this. It's 70s disco, 80s synth pop, joyous, fun album, half length of the Beyoncé album, but at least twice as fun. I'm not saying necessarily twice as good, but certainly twice as fun. As you might imagine, it's an album full of positivity about self-image, self-confidence.
Yeah.
And I have to say, I think the first half of this album is pretty much faultless.
Yeah. Perfect.
From the sign to kind of the title track special.
Yeah.
It's just
brilliant, great in a different way.
Yeah, and also To Be Loved, I Am Ready, I think is possibly the best single of the year so far for me. It's just such a banging pop tune.
It's a banging 80s pop tune.
Yeah,
even right down to the formatting of the title.
Yeah, exactly.
To Be Loved brackets I Am Ready brackets.
Yeah, it's just Oh, I genuinely just love it.
Yeah.
Second half of the album isn't quite up to the standard of the first half of the album, but it's still, because it's only 35 minutes, it still zips by. Naked Birthday Girl standouts in the second half of the album for me. I really like those. Gay has a very Michael Jackson Thriller-esque vibe to it musically, I kind of thought. And it's just... What's also funny, and this is great, and again, this podcast is self-referential, because on the song Bitch, there's a lyric, figure me out, no cheat code, give me your hoodie when I'm cold.
Yeah.
And the next album that's in the reviewing is called Cheat Code.
Yeah, I spotted that one too.
It's just like...
Oh my goodness.
It's the ultimate self-referential podcast.
We just don't think about these things, but we do. But we don't.
Yeah. But and also the lyrics in Special are really liked. Can you imagine a world where it was the same? You could cancel the girl because she just won't change. Yeah. And then there's that's why we feel so low, and that's why we feel so much shame. Yeah, I genuinely love this record. It's like I love when she first came on the scene a few years ago, I was kind of thinking, this is somebody that's genuinely fun and writes fun pop songs. Yeah. And then obviously, I don't know if you've seen her kind of her show. She did a show when she auditioned girls, beautiful big black women, to be background singers and performers on tour. Also, just really good, full of heart, genuinely full of heart. And she plays the fucking flute, you know. Yeah. Don't get a flute in music these days.
Yeah, and that whole approach, the whole band, the whole approach, the whole image, it sort of reminds me of Self-Esteem and some of the stuff she's done in the summer. Yeah. The various festivals, you know, that sort of whole consciousness around being a woman that comes through some of the lyrics here as well. And I mean my own thoughts was, I completely agree with you. It opens so wonderfully happy. It's like this washed with the 70s and 80s sort of soulful vibe.
It's kind of perfect summer record.
Yeah, it's a perfect summer album. It's a shame that I've only just discovered it.
As we to autumn.
just as the weather goes, fuck you, Britain.
Well, you say that. We might have been... Global warming.
No, exactly. So there'll be plenty of opportunities to burn later. But no, it's a great summer album, and you know what? I obviously tried not to compare this to Beyonce, which I just listened to when I listened to this. Again, this feels like something that you could just put on at a party. You put this on when everyone's sort of jolly and happy, and then when things get a little bit edgier later,
then you go to Nin.
Obviously then you go to Nine Inch Nails. But before you get to Nine Inch Nails, you want people to sort of dance and have a few more vodkas, and you're like, that's when you put the Beyonce on. so this is a nice warm-up act for your perfect summer party. You put this on first, then you do Beyonce later, and then obviously you close with Nin.
Then you get dark.
But no, I love the 80s. Right? Absolutely everything about this. I particularly liked Everybody's Gay because it's just so wonderful. Special, Birthday Girl. Do you know, I quite like Coldplay at the end there as well, with this little sort of
with this little Coldplay
cameo in there. It's stars, isn't it?
Yeah.
The stars. And it's just like, brilliant. And it's just sort of that reference to, so I remember the time when we just kicked back and listened to Coldplay and we were so happy. Oh, what nice little close. So yeah, brilliant.
Right. After that positive start, let's see if we can continue.
It's all positive so far.
We go on to Danger Mouse and Black Thought with the album Cheat Codes. Danger Mouse. Actually, they're saying that. Having said the thing at the start, I think we possibly might have reviewed something with Danger Mouse and somebody else.
You know what? Oh my god, this podcast is layers within layers.
What?
You've referenced him already. You mentioned 99 Problems.
Was it really?
Yeah. Do you remember the Grey album? When the Black album met the White album, that was Danger Mouse.
Possibly not.
It's layers within layers, people.
Yeah. Anyway, this is called cheat.
So then he went legit and did albums.
Yeah, this is called cheat codes. So back to you, Peter, and I think back to you for some old school kind of rapping hip hop. I think
I'm lost now in 99 Problems versus Helter Skelter. This is a great opening. This is a great opening album. This was the first album I listened to this time around of this cohort. So really love sort of the track. Sometimes emphatically followed up by the title track, Cheat Codes, all of which sets a scene. And the album really moves along at pace, particularly at the beginning.
It does.
You go from there to The Darkest Place to No Gold Teeth, and then it only really starts to slow down about a third of the way through. You get to It's Because, the track Because, which covers a slightly different territory lyrically, moving from doing this really wonderful movement from racism to domestic violence to sort of various societal problems and how that impacts on relationships going forward, and that takes you to a mellower space.
Katie Melua space.
Katie Melua, a mellower space where you get the Belize, with the aforementioned Belize, which we talked about earlier, and then the excellent, and I think this is possibly my favourite track of the album, Aquamarine, which is just pure indie trip hop of an age way back when. But dusted off and done well. It's super.
Featuring Michael Koenig.
Yeah, really. Was it? Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's doing the chorusy bits.
He's doing the chorusy bits. I remember him from previous podcasts, and that is just brilliant. And then, I can't stop saying brilliant this podcast. There's been a lot of inventiveness and brilliance on this podcast, and then the album settles into the final third. It's a bit harder towards the end, a bit edgier. I find, having had all this sort of experimentation and wonderful crossing over, it gets a bit harder. But then it ends on a good groove with violas and lupitas. Also, back in Belize, some really good rhyming on here as well. I love the rhyming of urethra and eureka.
Well, I suppose old school. It is literally when you literally rhymed everything.
I was just like, how did you do that? How did you do that? It was just like, we landed through the urethra and then we made our way here and it's eureka. It's just like, that's genius. Anyway, so yeah, good.
Yeah, no, it's
solid with the ping.
No, it's for me, it's very old school.
Yeah.
Old school rap hip hop from if you're an old fucker like us and you liked kind of 80s, 90s rather than the last 20 years kind of rap hip hop.
Oh yeah.
It has that classic 60s, 70s soul vibe coming off on the kind of the background music of what's going on.
Yeah.
And actually lots of it's simplistic in the fact that it's not trying to like cut lots of things together. It's having one kind of group, it's having one or two groups going, not kind of like jarring things against each other. Obviously the rapping is, he's a brilliant old school MC.
Yeah.
And proves it here with literally rhyme, as you said, rhyming everything.
Anything.
Literally rhyming
anything. It's an art form, man.
And it reminds me of why I really got into kind of like rap and hip hop in the kind of late 80s, early 90s, because that cleverness and just literally the rhythm.
Yeah.
If you pardon the
rhythm of
expression.
Words and what they mean.
It starts off. I love the opening track partly because I actually really like because it samples Gwen McRae's "Love Without Sex," which is off an album first called "Something So Right," which is a really fucking good record. Has to be said. So I loved that for a start off. I said, "Oh, should I heard that?" I went, "Okay, I'm sat down. I'm in for this. This is good." I just said Aquamarine, just brilliant. Also really like Darkest Part. Partly because it nicks two lines from Public Enemy's Black Steel in the Hour of Chaos off possibly the best rap album ever. It takes Mason and Miller's back. Also, there's a really good line. I can't remember which song it is, but it's not a myth. Blackness is not a monolith.
Yeah. Yes.
I can't remember which track it was, but that really was a line I really liked.
I also really like the line on that. I can think it was in Belize. It's like reflecting black like God's reflection.
Yeah,
I love that line.
But yeah, this is just really, really great. I mean, I can understand it. I can understand people criticising it for kind of going, oh, it's a bit kind of like, it's not doing anything new, blah blah blah. But again, sometimes you don't have to do anything new. You just do something old and just do it good. And that's what this is. Really good record. Really good record. Moving on to a newer artiste, Rico Nasty. Haven't quite figured out if this is meant to be an album or whether it's mixtape. It seems to be. People have described it as both online, so it's kind of hard to tell, really.
Okay. Okay.
This is Ruinas. So it's either her second album or her umpteenth mixtape. She's built up quite a following over the last few years for her use of eclectic musical palettes for her rapping, breakbeats, drum and bass, indie rock, punk, metal, etc. In fact, crossing over so much that Kerrang actually reviewed this album.
No way.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Which is interesting because there's not a lot of rock on this album.
There's some.
There is some.
There's some rock on this album.
There is some rock on this album, but it's quite subtle and it's not kind of out there.
Yeah.
The strange way,
I wouldn't have said Kerrang levels of rock, but
Kerrang gave it 4 out of 5.
I stand to be corrected.
Yeah.
Wow.
Saying that she is the future.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think
this seemed to be a more dance-focused collection overall for me. If you were taking what you've been sold of saying she's quite rocky, quite punky, her look is very punky. She's very much Hayley Quinn-esque. This was one of these records where I felt it was a bit monotonous on the first couple of listens.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, regular listeners, I am about to say, I then listened to it for a third time
Here it comes.
and kind of went,
oh,
go on.
Oh.
Something more is going on here.
Oh,
as things started separating out and coming together a bit more.
Yeah.
And this is an album that goes from in-your-face rapping to kind of Charlie XCX Type 1 pop, on something like Focus Me. Good use of vocal tricks, particularly to change her voice up for Skullflower.
Mm-hmm. Which is good. I like it.
Yeah. Also has the ability to go from screeching restaurant to rip your heart out on the track like the opening track, intrusive, to an incredibly good singing voice on like Fucking Lady, Dance Scream, and especially on the acoustic ballad Easy, which is just beautiful. Also it's very funny. On Intrusive, I think it is on Intrusive, there's the great line, and I am going to swear again, I'm only here to smoke more blunts and spit on racist cunts, which is then beautifully followed by the line, Mom, if you hear this, I'm sorry.
I heard that. Yes, I heard that in the background there.
Yeah. But then there's also the brilliant bit on Blow Me when she adopts the Australian accent to go,
yes,
and he go down, under, good day, mate. Which is just very, very funny.
It's comedy.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
High marks me are Intrusive, Black Punk, really good, Easy, Into the Dark. I'm hoping it's a mixtape, because as an album it doesn't really hold together.
Oh, okay.
But there's certainly more than enough here to demonstrate that this is somebody to pay attention to, keep an eye on, and indeed an ear out for future output.
Interesting. We're going to agree and disagree on the same review. I don't think this has ever happened before. Because I agree with everything you've said. But yeah,
except you think it does hang together.
My conclusion is different. This album takes no prisoners, leaning heavily into, as you say, 90s industrial techno, EDM. The rock element is obviously there. I can see why Kerrang actually picked it up, and the more I think about it, I mean, there is more typical sort of R&B and Watch Your Man and Blow Me, but the album seems to settle into this alternative groove. And just when you think the album has settled, it takes this crazy left turn right in the middle with the remix of Jungle, which feels like it's just dropped in from somewhere completely different. And yet I like it, and yet it's possibly one of my highlights of this album. I mean, there are others. It's one of my highlights of the album, but yeah, it's very much as a sort of a palate cleanser, and then what follows is very much in that sort of similar sort of clubby dance-oriented vein.
Yes.
And then, to Kerrang's credit, right at the end, it takes a guitar, another left turn towards guitar-driven music. It's, you know, you get a couple of real rockers on there, a couple of more softer personal tunes as well. I thought Chicken Nugget was very cute at the end. So my conclusion is I think it actually does hang together very well. And I know we've been on here a few times in the past and said, you know, albums these days made for streaming, you know, you can chop and change them and put them here, there and everywhere. This album is an example of where that's been done.
Yes.
There's a rock album, there's a dance album, there's an R&B album, there's a rap album, there's everything all mixed together. But actually, I think, a bit like Beyoncé, you have to listen to it as a complete work for it to make any sense. Because if you don't listen to it from start to finish, if you don't experience that crazy left turn in the middle with the remix and what follows, you don't get the connectivity. So I actually disagree. I agree, but disagree. So we'll have to agree to disagree.
I feel there's a podcast. There's a podcast doing that at the moment.
Yeah. Oh, yes, indeed. But here we are. I think we've been doing that a lot longer.
Apparently, we've got 7% left on the batteries.
All right, let's get moving. Ooh,
indie time.
Indie time.
Well, sort of indie time.
How many we've got left? Two. Right, let's do
Pale Waves.
Let's knock them on.
Pale Waves. And their album is called Unwanted.
Are you coming to me first?
I am going to you first. This is the third album. I guess. There we go. Third album. Yeah, album number 3 from this Manchester band, who apparently first album was very poppy. Second album went more kind of pop punk. I think this album kind of probably leans more towards the second album than the first album, I would say.
Yeah, definitely. But if you're coming to me,
but is it any good? Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Do you know what? No. I mean, I've only just learned from you that they're from Manchester, so obviously. I wish you hadn't said that because no, I didn't like this at all.
Really?
It's sort of classic indie pop, but it's got hits on there, and it goes. Do you know what I was just saying a moment ago about like streaming and I mean I don't care what order this album is in because I can chop and change it and build my own version, and it all sounds the same.
I think that's unfair.
No, it's very fair. It's very fair. Apart from the obvious ballads, of which there are 2 or 3 that pop up. And the third ballad had swears. But I'm getting childish now. I mean, I did like Unwanted, the title track. There are a couple of other tracks I like, Alone, Rock Bottom. They're good indie pop songs. But no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Manchester. I didn't like this.
I'd love to say this album, but obviously I lost my notes, so I can't. However, I thought this album was fine. I mean, I was kind of literally solid about it, but in the slightly thumbs down solid rather than
sure.
It's a collection of Avril type songs, Paramore type songs, and a couple of things. Yeah. And there are a couple of bits on it that the Paramore one, only problem was very Paramore-y. There were a couple of songs I liked, and I'm trying because I lost my, I can't remember which ones were. I'm feeling You're So Vain. I liked,
yes.
And I quite liked. I quite liked whatever the first ballad was. Was that Without You or Clean or whatever? But one of those I actually quite liked and thought was actually quite pleasant.
No, come on, let's credit where credit is due, and it is due.
Yeah,
you know.
So I thought they were perfectly fine, but perfectly fine.
Perfectly fine. We've reviewed that one very quickly.
Yeah. On to the final album, which we might get in before the battery runs out. The 26th album by Len Wainwright III, Lifetime Achievement. 75. As referenced on the album, indeed. With over 55 years now in the business. Has been touted in his early years as a new Bob Dylan, which then disappeared, but actually was touted as a new Bob Dylan for very good reasons, in my view, because if you're familiar with his wider body of work, he is an excellent songwriter. A point that's often been lost in the past due to the fact that there's obviously been a lot of humour in his work, and there is not a shortage of that in this album, in fact. Poor banjo in this album we've had in any album for a long time. I thought, what are Bella Fleck and Abigail Washburn doing at the moment?
What are they up to?
Exactly. And this it's in a way it's a classic Len Wainwright album because it has both the things that he's renowned for. So it has comedy in it. It's a song about hell, for example.
Is that the one about being with family?
No, that's the one that comes after the one about family.
Oh yeah, you're right.
It literally seamlessly goes into it.
It seamlessly transitions into hell.
Yes. It's one of the best segues of any album.
One of the best unwritten jokes in any album.
Yes, but it starts off with that thing. The whole thing. Him and his relationship with family has been a ongoing thing over the years, because he is brutally honest about his writing and has managed to fuck off most of his children. Even on this album, he mentions his daughter Lucy in the song Hat. But obviously, and the song you just referenced, there's a song that's does it have a vacation? It's called
Famvac.
Famvac, which is about a song about basically having a vacation away from your family. Something which we've all wanted to do.
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
On many occasions. And that's the kind of typical, but this stuff is the typical Loudon stuff. And there's a couple of things like that are on it. It's a great song. The second song is one of two a cappella songs about making a wish and stuff, which I really hated the first time I heard it. But then after I played a couple of times, I kind of went, I kind of like the simplicity of this, and particularly the kind of whole thing when it builds up to the thing of when you get to a birthday, you have a wish, but I can't tell you what it is because it wouldn't come true, kind of thing, which I quite liked. But I think the two standout tracks, and I might have to look up the tracks here because I haven't got the thing, are the two songs that are clearly written about his current relationship, which are the title track, Lifetime Achievement, where you basically kind of go, so I can't. My biggest achievement essentially is meeting you, the woman lady he's currently with, and It Takes Two, which is the third track on the album, which is also similarly themed kind of thing about, I'm working because we're together. And I think as pure songs in and of themselves that could be taken out of the album, I think those are the two best tracks. There's still other good stuff. There's still other good stuff. Like A Little Piece of Me, Hell, which I've already mentioned. There's a couple of songs about going back to old towns, so back in your town and country, particularly. There's another kind of a cappella song, It, which didn't work quite as well for me as the One Wish track. And I also like How Old Is 75 as well, when he's literally kind of going, how am I this age? Am I going to live to 80 when the fat lady sings? Kind of thing. Not the best Loudon Wainwright album, but still enough on it to make me kind of go, yeah, there's a reason why I'm glad he's still around.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you know what? I mean, the humour is amazing, and it actually starts quite seriously. I don't know if you've got an almost sea shanty sort of folky sort of vibe.
Well, I just in
a couple of places on this album, but for a guy of his experience and maturity, I mean, his voice is still amazing. I mean, there was the there's a couple of times it goes vocal only, and it's just him singing to Mike. I think it's I Wish.
Yeah, I Wish and
True. And it's just amazing listening to him sing. But the humour is obviously there, and it's right across the album. We've talked about Fatback, and I mean, in summary, there's a lot to like about this. Whether he's sad or happy or just plain angry, it's just a joy to listen to him. It's just an absolute joy.
So, Pete, as you were saying about Loudon Wainwright.
I think I was just saying it was an absolute joy to listen throughout. I think that was... I was just about working up to my conclusion, actually, as we cut out there. No, it's been fantastic. I really enjoyed this record. That was it. That was the end of the podcast. Apart from our surmising.
True. Yes, we haven't surmised. Actually, surprisingly, I didn't think this coming into this podcast. Surmising is actually quite tricky.
It is very.
Because I'm not 100% certain what my favourite album is. Well, actually, in a way, it's one of those things where I could probably tell you what. So I think when you can go, so many people didn't know anything. Go, what's your favourite film? And go, this is my favourite film. Although the best film is this. And I could almost do that with a podcast. Kind of go, well, the one that gave me the most joy was clearly the Lizzo album.
Yeah. Okay.
By a long way.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Do I think it's the best album in the podcast?
No.
I don't know.
So I'm in a similar place. I think the one that gave me the most joy was the Rico Nasty album. But it's not the best album of the podcast. And the Lizzo album also gave me a lot of joy as well. But it's clearly the Beyoncé album is the best produced album of the podcast. The best complete album of the podcast. However, I think I would rate Rico Nasty higher.
Yeah. I'm genuinely not sure what I would have for the best album, actually. I would probably sit on the fence.
Oh, no, you can't sit on the fence. We never sit on the fence. Even if you pick a different one.
Oh.
Pick one.
In that case, I'm going to Lizzo because it's short.
There you go, brilliant. I agree. Well done. See you next time.
So, if you hear this, I've managed to get the recording off the iPhone for the last couple of minutes of the podcast after the laptop crashed during the recording of the podcast.
It's been 3 days.
And this is our 12th attempt to get this bit right. So if you're still here, until next time.